Hey folks, and welcome to They Might Be Racing. Today out in the driveway we've got a 2005 Nissan Sentra 1.8 liter motor. What we're doing today is changing out the drive belts. So basically, this happens to be one of my kid sister's cars, and she's drove it back and forth to California for pretty much 2 years straight from Arizona, so needless to say she's built up enough mileage that these need to be replaced. Now, unlike most other intelligently designed modern engines that have a serpentine belt set up, the Sentra uses a completely different methodology for doing this. There are two tensioners, and we're going to start. This particular car is equipped with power steering. So if you'll see down at the end of the light here, you've got a tensioner. And that tensioner, the bolt head is on the back, and it is a funny angle, which means it's a real pain in the butt to get your hand on. It's a 12mm bolt, and you simply loosen it up. And I'd already pre-loosened it by hand. Now the fun part is that once you loosen this, the bolt will actually stick out the end rather than the pulley coming forward. It's because the power steering tends to stick in place. So you got to grab the power steering here and pull like a son of a gun to get the power steering to shift forward. Now once it's shifted forward, as you can see, I can pull the belt off, so we've now got the power steering belt removed. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to finish fishing out the power steering bolt, and then we're going to come around to the front. If you'll see down here underneath the alternator, if you see where my lamp is, there's another little bolt, for lack of a better term. It's that long rod sticking out with the hexagonal bits on the end. That's the tensioner that works for the main serpentine belt. So we're going to get the first belt out, come back, loosen things up, and then we're going to pull out the second belt. So I will get this going, and I'll talk to you in a second. Okay, now we're going to focus on the inner serpentine belt. So come here. So the fun part is, down in here, this is the tensioner for the main serpentine belt. That's a 8mm end on that. You got to loosen that up. Now what goes in tandem with that is directly underneath this pulley here, there are two 14mm bolts. Here's one of them right here. So, to get that pulley to move forward, you have to break loose each bolt, and then the one that's the most forward is the one you remove. And that allows this whole pulley assembly to, as you can see there, it allows the whole pulley assembly to rock forward. Once that can rock forward, you can then slide the belt out. And so I slid the belt off, and it fell right out of the bottom of the car. Now you can see what we're looking at here. There's a lot of cracking. That's not super critical, although it does show age. But what we didn't like is, you see this banding here? That banding is what's going to break. And so when you look at your serpentine belt, you look for cracks. The other thing you want to look for is literally chunks of it missing. And then look for the banding on the back. So that banding is what told us that we needed to change this belt. So, the fun part is we're going to now seat the new serpentine belt. Now the way that this little stinker goes is it goes number one around the crank, which is this large lower pulley down here. Like, this is a tight space. Alright. And it may be easier if you just sort of slip underneath to make sure it's feeding in correctly. Basically, it goes around there. It goes underneath the AC compressor right in the front, and then you just need to get it up and over the alternator. And then finally, underneath the tensioner pulley. So the problem is, this new belt is particularly rigid. So it's going to take me a minute or two to get this. So I'll get this reseated and then we'll tighten it all back up again. So the real trick, once you've got the belt threaded, is down here at this guy, you've got to tension the belt with an 8mm socket until you can slip the second bolt into the hole. Now, I ended up cheating a little bit. I stuck a big screwdriver in between here, pried forward a little bit to get it to go down enough. You put in that 14mm bolt, tighten it up, then you do your final tensioning on the 8mm, make sure both of those bolts are good and tight, and then the serpentine belt here is done. Now on this belt here, this is the power steering belt. It just fits in a loop. It's fairly easy to fit. Once you've got it on here, all you really need to do at this stage of the game is start tightening up this tensioning rod. Remember, this was a 10mm, so just start tensioning it up. And it may actually be relatively easy to turn at the beginning. And then just basically what you do is you continue to tighten this down until the belt is at the correct tension. The one other thing you want to do is there is a nut right behind in here that tightens these two pieces of metal together to hold the power steering pump in place. You just want to double check that that's good and tight when you're done. But basically at this point in time, once you've got this, the main belt on, and you've got this one tightened down to the correct tension, you are good to go and you are done. Now I will admit that there was a bunch of off-camera swearing, primarily to do with the serpentine belt. This design, as I think I mentioned before, is not exactly the greatest. I'm not impressed. And so you're going to want to have a little bit of patience when you're doing this one. This isn't like a normal serpentine where you just flip a lever and you're done. But it is still doable. It's not that hard. It's just, as I said, it's a patience game. So at this point in time, we're done with this car and we're done for the day. So I'll see you next time. Bye.